of it. This is a session dedicated to SCUDEM. It's an hour long. I'm going to do the first talk here. I'll just give an introduction to SCUDEM, talk about the history of it, and then I'm also going to talk about my experience. And then at 4:30, we have a special student presentation of the students that I coached last semester. So if you have time to stick around for that, it'd be awesome. So you could see the model that they developed and then them also talk about their experience. So I'm Anthony Stefan. I am a grad student at Florida Institute of Technology. I am going for my PhD in applied mathematics, and this is my SCUDEM experience. So first, I'd like to begin with just what is the history of SCUDEM? And Brian Winkle is also going to present with me today. However, he wanted to do other responsibilities because he's the director of SIMEOD as well in this entire expo. So unfortunately, he can't be here. He wanted to talk about the origins of it, so I'm going to do this for him. Chris McCarthy of Borough of Manhattan College, Community College in New York, suggested to Brian that there should be some type of challenge or small challenge that we could give students so that they can practice and learn differential equation modeling, learn differential equations through modeling as a difference from doing it inside of a classroom. And he wanted to compare this to the Association for Computing Machinery. They normally annually host a challenge. And so the director, Brian Winkle, thought, well, what should we have students do, right? So he wanted to provide students with three different problems, one of them of the social science, one of the life sciences, and another one of the physical sciences. So it catered all different types of interests. And they would just select one, and the students would be given 1 week to present them and show their results to judges where they could be scored and receive an award or certificate, but also get valuable feedback on the model that they created. And so they wanted to try to test this out, and they did a prototype or a test run, a trial at Mount St. Mary College in Newborough, New York, during a 1 week period in October of 2017. So 8 teams actually participated, and it was in the regional area of there. It was not just at that specific university that those students went to that university. So it was a gathering of all different types of backgrounds and students, but just in that region. And then they presented their work in a 10-minute presentation. And the judges for this presentation of the SCUDEM challenge was just the faculty at Mount St. Mary College. So professors of DE, calculus, different professors there were able to give feedback to the students. And then also all the scores were compiled and the student teams were given certificates, and it ranged from the best distinction, which was outstanding, all the way to a successful achievement, right? Because we wanted to make sure that students still felt like they were contributing and everyone was able to receive an award. So you still get an achievement even if there is some feedback from the judges that your model could be improved. And then there was also a Math Bowl trivia event. So the Math Bowl trivia event is like puzzles and challenges and fun stuff of modern math questions and things to get undergraduate students who are participating in this just kind of let loose, cut the nerves and everything, but then also kind of maybe introduce some new type of math to them. And then so this prototype was a success, and the video of it, of all of the presentations, everything, are on the SIMEOD YouTube channel. And thus SCUDEM was born. So because of this, they wanted to host it again. And so what we wanted to start to develop was, okay, if we're going to make this organization of SCUDEM, we need kind of like a modus operandi. We need to understand what are we going to make as the purpose of SCUDEM. And so we wanted to make sure that it was collaboration of students of many different types of cross disciplines. So we liked the way that we gave different problems of different disciplines, and also allow the students in undergrad to not need to be in one class, right? You can work with your friends, you can work with different levels of your career. If you're a sophomore, could work with a junior, et cetera. And then we also have sometimes high school students that participate in this. Also, we wanted to try to introduce learning mathematical modeling and learning about differential equations outside of the classroom. But not just that, but also on real and modern problems, not textbook problems that you would see just regularly in a textbook that so many people have worked and that there's solutions online probably. More interesting problems that they've never came across and that exist in the real world. Also, the experience with coaches in preparation for the week of the challenge period. So also, once a coach would register with its student, its registration normally opens around August. The challenge period is typically at the end of October, beginning of November. And so the experience of preparation, of meeting with your team prior to that moment, we wanted to make sure that these students were getting insight and learning from professors who know how to do differential equation modeling and was meeting with them on a regular basis. During the challenge period, SCUDEM, the coaches are supposed to be completely hands-off, and we want them to be completely hands-off so that you can see the model and kind of like the level that your students are at and watch them blossom and try to develop a model on their own. And then also, we wanted to make sure that the SCUDEM, the purpose of it was also that students could get some feedback, really good feedback from judges who are experts in this from their submission. So I want to look at the change of SCUDEM over time from this first SCUDEM prototype all the way to what it was last semester in the fall when we hosted it. So in the past, there was physical presentations. You would meet at a local host site, and when you would meet there, the students would give their presentation. And now it's currently a virtual YouTube submission of their model, and it's a 10-minute submission. And so they get used to understanding electronics, developing their model and presenting it online, doing Zooms in order to collaborate. And so we see that this is kind of the common of modern times, and it's preparing them to be more skilled at being able to do presentations online. Also, it used to be only 1 week, and we've gotten a lot of feedback that SCUDEM, that wasn't enough time during the middle of the semester of the fall time, so we gave the students now 3 weeks. So we've advanced this for just a longer time period for them to work on their model. Also, the judges were always local. So the judges would be faculty that were at the local site host, whatever university that was. And now with the availability of it being virtual, we're able to incorporate a whole different types of variety of judges from different backgrounds and all over the world. So about 8 judges give you feedback on your model. And these judges could be from India, they could be from the United States. And so you get a lot of different backgrounds and expertise and comments and feedback on the model, which is very valuable to the students. Also, as I mentioned in the past, used to meet at a local regional site. And now with it being a virtual competition, it's a global network that we're starting to develop. And that's because it's bringing together so many different types of countries that are participating in this. And not only that, but when they upload their model to their video submission, some of them get posted on the Symiode website. And so this gives a potential for collaboration. We also have the ability when it's virtual that if a coach cannot find students at their local university, then they can register to still be a coach, and we can match them with a group of students that maybe we know of a coach that has too many teams, or we know of a coach, or we know of a team that cannot find a coach. And it's vice versa with that, where if we have 2 students interested in this region in the United States, and we have one student in Panama that really wants to be a part of this, and we have a coach that's willing to pick up that student, then we can do this now. So it's a global international event. And so these are some of the locations that we are starting to get involvement from students, coaches, and judges. And so as you can see now, being in this, only starting in New York, it's pretty phenomenal that we're starting to get so many people involved with this of different backgrounds and generating quite an amazing community. So just some summary of results from SCUDEM 6, which happened in the fall. We had a lot of people registered, but we didn't have everyone complete it. So we had about 26 outstanding presentations and 40 meritorious and 16 successful. So that's 82 different teams that got feedback from judges. So that's pretty impressive. And I believe the feedback was, I believe it was around winter, my students got their feedback from the judges of how they did. And so this is actually rather incredible. And also with it being a virtual submission, the outstanding presentations we collect, and hopefully over the spring, whenever Anthony has more free time, they get uploaded to the Simiode YouTube channel so that students can actually see how the other students modeled that received outstanding, how they modeled from a different perspective the same problem. And also, another interesting part is we have some professors who are teaching differential equations will actually go and show their students, look at how these individuals modeled this problem, and maybe they put one of the problems that was modeled on an exam or as a project, and then the students can go in and look at other students and see how they come up with models and critique them. This is another like classroom type of environment project that we're seeing to start generate on learning differential equations and showing other students how students are modeling things. This is a good moment to just take time to say on the Simiode website, we have many resources available for coaches to know a good model outline, and then also students see what would be an ideal model and what would that outline look like. We have a few other resources that are written by yours truly that include how you can use LaTeX, modern LaTeX collaboration, also some other types of resources for students that are that they could use to develop models or find numerical results on models. So all of that is available on the Simiode website. And then also, this is a good time to say a team that was rewarded an outstanding distinction is actually going to be presenting right after this. They are my students and they did a wonderful job on their model. So I hope that everyone can stick around and listen to that. So I would like to just take a little bit of time to talk about why am I talking about SCUDEM? Why am I here? And why was I chosen to moderate this and host this? So my SCUDEM experience was in 2018. I was a student participant, and my teammates were not math majors, but Zachary, one of my teammates, was from biochem, molecular biology, and Bernie, my best friend, was a chemistry major. And so I was a math major, and we all wanted to participate in this. And also Dr. Jason Elsinger is inside this Zoom. So hello, Jay, thank you so much. He was my coach during the time. And so we were awarded outstanding distinction for a predator-prey model. And so the question was, how can we know, or how does a simple prey organism know when to flee from a predator if it's approaching it? And what we were given was just a research document on simple prey organisms, saying that there was a few stimuli that was involved in order for it to break a threshold and it would know to flee. And so we modeled this just using a differential equation. And in fact, we even modeled beyond that. We said, well, let's model that. We came up with our equation and that satisfied the problem. But then we took it a little extra step further and we said, let's model the way that maybe that neural system works. Like, let's say that once it breaks that threshold, let's model the way that the signal would propagate through the neural system as like a transmission line. And then also, let's take it even a step further and say, how does this actually look in the physical sciences, in space? So we then modeled using a rocket propulsion equation how the prey would turn and actually use water to propel itself from a C-star response away from the predator. So it was pretty amazing that just this research document gave us this much information of how this simple prey organism would flee away, and we were able to model it. And so because of our results, the director, Brian Winkle, invited us to the 2019 Joint Mathematics Meeting, JMM, to speak and discuss about our model. And so the whole team, including the coach, all traveled to Baltimore in 2019, and we gave a presentation on our model. And then later on, we didn't want to stop there because we've really enjoyed developing this model, and all of the team members were rather ambitious and said, why don't we write up our results? And it was quite a fun experience because we start, as we're writing all of our results, we're finding out, oh my gosh, mathematical writing is not the same as writing in English, right? And even on top of that, writing scientifically is also rather rigorous, right? So we got introduced to that, and also got introduced to writing in LaTeX. And this is all as we're undergrads. And so this paper that we wrote up, we submitted to Rose-Hulman Undergraduate Mathematics Journal, and it was accepted. It's located here at the footnote at the bottom. And then in 2018, my senior year of undergrad, I judged for the competition. And from 2019, since I've been in graduate school until this past fall, and I plan to continue to coach, I've coached a total of about 6 teams, all ranging of different types of results, from outstanding to successful. And so what did I gain from this? And I would like to just talk about what is my growth as a student, and then what was my growth as a coach from participating in this, because now I've seen all the different types of perspectives and avenues that this challenge can bring. And so as a student, I definitely learned how to create a mathematical model, but for a modern problem that I've never seen before, right? How can I go out on a limb and say, okay, with the knowledge that I have from this research paper, how is it possible that I could create a differential equation? So that was really valuable. And so what came with that, because I'm looking at this research paper, I learned how to read a research paper appropriately. And so I use this term appropriately, meaning we would all love to work out every little bit of a research paper, proving every little detail, but that's not realistic because we're given a certain time domain that we have to complete this challenge in. And so because of that, you have to try to scan the paper really fast and pick out the important parts. So it was, oh, okay, thank you. Dr. Elsinger gave a comment in the chat about the publication, but also given this, these problems, every single problem has a research article that's associated with the problem that's given. So it was good for me to learn how to read these in a timely manner. And so then also how to recognize, and I think that this was one of the biggest takeaways of doing this challenge, was recognize and capitalize on the strengths and weaknesses of your other team members, right? If someone is trying to do a presentation and they're not good at presenting, but I am, then maybe I'll take that front. If they're better at developing the mathematics, then they can take that front. And recognizing that right off the bat was, I think, a very important key aspect to our success in developing our model. Also, to learn how to present mathematically, and not only that, concisely, because we have to do it within 10 minutes. As a coach, through this experience, I learned how to manage students in a math competition, right? And also how to get them engaged and involved. So it's rather difficult if you're not a professor of a differential equations competition. How do you get students involved? So I learned techniques of marketing this across campus, getting professors to get their students involved, but not only their students, but also their son or daughter involved, right? So this is something that I really grew as an individual of communicating this type of information. Also, I was able to build a relationship with motivated students, which we all know that can foster great things in the future, of working in collaborations and working with individuals and students and mentoring them. Also, they can bring you a different perspective of how you think you would model the problems. When the problems are released and I can't talk to the students, I sit down that night and I try to think, okay, how would I do this for each of the problems, right? And I think, oh, I would definitely choose that problem and I wouldn't choose this one. And so when they come back and show you the model that they gave you, you learn a new perspective, different technique. Maybe, oh, I didn't implement that. I didn't see that. So that was really a great growth. And then obviously all of this, you can see how it just adds to CV items for not only yourself as a coach, but also for your students before they even get to grad school. And this is even something to market that says, okay, maybe you're not going to grad school. Maybe you want to go into industry after you graduate undergrad. This is still something that when you're sitting down at an interview for a job, your student can say, yes, I participated this and it's on my resume. And when they ask you about it during the interview, you can say, I learned leadership skills. I learned how to do this. I learned how to manage a team. Or maybe they said, I learned math, or I didn't learn math, and or I didn't actually know how to capitalize on this. And I learned about myself during that experience. So it can be valuable for both students in whatever direction they want to go. And so I just want to finish up here with a couple future directions. And so the future directions, I want to start with, what is the marketing aspect right now currently? And it's still the current marketing aspect for SCUDEM. And that is that SCUDEM provides this very modern outside of the classroom experience for students to learn modeling differential equations. And we see that these are modern problems. This is modern research. And so it's rather fascinating, and that's still unique, different from a textbook and a classroom lecture. So that's rather amazing. However, I'm also seeing that maybe a potential future direction for SCUDEM that is available currently as the way SCUDEM is, because my experience, I had no extra opportunity or anything like that. It was just based off of, we had a SCUDEM challenge in front of us. I believe that there's an analogy that exists between a coaching and student experience of doing modern mathematical research under an advisor and possibly grad school for a research-oriented program. But this is an undergraduate level experience, and anyone can participate in it as well, which is rather fascinating, because there's other types of experiences such as REUs that are highly competitive, and they're also involving money. And there's other differential equation modeling competitions where the winner receives like $10,000, et cetera. Well, this is something that if your student, any student that you have, can participate in, and they can still get results, and they can still see that this is an experience that models this type of research-oriented relationship between a professor and a student. So what is SCUDEM like? Essentially, it's analogous to something like working on a modern research problem that you don't know anything about, and you're just trying to get results on. You're also doing that independently. Then also presenting your model for SCUDEM or at the university, potentially, if you're able to get your students to present to their other classmates, if they could present to the school at like a math colloquium or something. Well, this is equivalent to presenting research at conferences. And then also the submission to the judges on YouTube and getting their feedback is just like submitting to a journal, and also getting a referee's feedback and how can you incorporate the referee's feedback into your model. Post SCUDEM meeting with students. So this is like an after action report with your students. This is analogous to adding in a referee's comments. A lot of individuals, after they have their students participate, that are the individuals that are coaches, after they have their students participate, they seem to just let it die out and they don't meet up with their students again. And I highly encourage coaches to have an after action report, which is after you get the judge's feedback, make sure that you meet with the students one more time, maybe host like a pizza party or something, and talk to the students about, what did you think that this judge meant by their feedback, right? Because sometimes they they don't understand the feedback, and how could you make your model better? And then also writing a paper for potentially an undergrad journal, having that experience. Well, this is a one-to-one. It's like a bijection relationship between having a research advisor and writing for a journal. So that's all I have for you guys today, but I really appreciate you coming to the talk. And I will stop my screen share. Thank you, guys. So there's a ton of information about SCUDEM available online. And we have about 4 minutes before the next presentation. So are there any questions for the speaker?
I'll bite. I have a question.
Yes.
So first iteration was a 1 week long competition. You said you guys eventually moved it to 3 weeks. How many iterations did that take?
The 3-week iteration was the past 2 years. So
okay,
that took 3 years for that to be implemented.
okay.
Yeah, and it is from feedback from the students saying, we don't have time in 1 week to complete this.
That's actually, so whenever I brought up SCUDEM to one of my colleagues, they brought up a similar competition hosted by SCIAM and the AMS. And that one's like a 3 or 4 day competition.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the complaint that my colleague had about that competition. So good to hear. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Yes, Ornella, I see you raise your hand.
Yes, so first of all, thank you so much for this very nice introduction of SCUDEM. I do have a question. So what about the future? Are you planning on still having hybrid virtual meetings, or are you going to be, are you planning to go back into, like on-site competitions? Like, do you know already, or too early to say?
Yeah, it's pretty too early to say. One interesting thing is what we're starting to do is we're posting all of the outstanding videos on the Simiode website, right? And we really like kind of how the outstanding students who develop these great models have the potential of maybe in the springtime following the fall, have an opportunity to go to like a conference or a workshop and develop and learn how to implement and critique, their model based on judges' feedback. So that's kind of all that's in my head for the future directions of this. But we like the aspect of it being virtual because so many people can participate, and we can also do that team linking with coaches who don't have enough team members or don't have a coach, So
I totally agree with that, but I also love the idea of having high school students involved. I'm thinking, like, I'm in the Bay Area. I think that it would be fantastic for me to connect with all the high school students we have here, or community colleges, so that we can actually recruit more students to get into math. So that's why I really love the idea of going back to in-person competitions at one point. But I totally see also the advantages of being here. Okay, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and I like the aspect of the opportunity for students to present and also put that on their CV, resume, and practice that.
I agree.